Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Let's talk about your psychology, how to manage your emotions so you can get the life that you want. One way to manage your emotions is through your communication with other people, which let's talk about today. This story, Brittney Griner, this news story. And why are we talking about the news? Are we talking about the news to learn about what's going on? Maybe. Are we talking about it to complain about what's going on? Of course, that's fun. But also, we talk about the news to learn about what's going on with us. These are points of self reflection. Whatever goes on culturally, it goes on individually. This is true 100% of the time. So, when we see a news story, yeah, let's learn about it so we can relate with it, so we can gain more awareness of our lives. And let's do that with Brittney Griner, who is this WNBA star who was arrested, I guess, earlier this year in Russia for having some CBD oil, which is illegal in Russia. So that was one news story, but recently we did a prisoner exchange, or the U.S. did a prisoner exchange with her, and we traded one Viktor Bout. Victor spelled with a K, which is cool. I mean, that's something the Europeans get right, is that's how you spell Victor, with a K. So Viktor Bout, who's an international arms dealer, which I guess that's a real thing now. I just thought it was something that they made up for True Lies, but I guess that's a real profession. He's some international arms dealer charged with conspiracy to kill a bunch of people. So it's like, man, it's totally unfair that they would arrest Brittney Griner for having some CBD cartridges, right? But I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't be exchanging her for this guy because he seems really bad. I mean, that seems to be what the reaction that people have, which may be some fairness to that. I'm not going to talk about that so much. What I do think is important is this is what Russia, I think, is doing to America over this issue, this prisoner exchange. I think this is what people who have borderline or narcissism or any other psychological issue that seems to coalesce around having a boundary issue. I think that's what's going on here. Because what do these people do? People who are narcissist or borderline is they'll use your good nature against you. They'll use your good nature against you to get what they want or get what they need. It's not really their needs, right? It's needs they have to cover up their pain that they can't really manage. I think we'll talk about it. So, man, where was I? Oh yeah. So people who have borderline or narcissism, they'll use your good nature against you. It's kind of the opposite of blackmail, right? Blackmail is when somebody uses something bad you did against you, so you cheat on your wife and they have pictures of it and they say, hey, you better give us $1 million or we're going to show your wife these pictures, right? That would be blackmail. This is white mail, I guess you could say, because people who have boundary issues, who don't really know how to communicate well or directly, manifestation of unconscious emotional issues. I mean, that's what makes it an issue, is that it's unconscious. And so this is how they get what they want, or really, this is how they cover up their pain, because this could just be a power play, right? Like, why would they want an international arms dealer? Like, what does that do? Isn't somebody else who could do that? I mean, it's just some guy who sells weapons. I mean, I think that's one of those things where I guess it does exist, not just in True Lies, but there seems to be a lot of money in it, right? Tia Carrera, is that her name? Something Carrera. She seemed to be doing very well in True Lies. So there's a lot of money in it. So if you got rid of one of them, why wouldn't somebody else do it? I mean, those Russians do handstands on 600-story buildings or whatever. It's like, I think they'll do that for some money. Those Russians, huh? So is this really just a power play, right? Is that what Russia's doing here? And, this is something we ought to be aware for. As America needs to be aware of Russia here, we need to be aware of these people in our life. They'll do things like start a fight in public. To anybody who has normal nerve endings, dude, you want to fight in public. Like, it's fine to fight, just don't do it in public. It's unseemly. Make a note of it, make a mental note and go, I'm going to bring this up later. But people who have borderline or narcissism, they don't care about that. Right, it's not that they don't have nerve endings; it's that actually their nerve endings are way too exposed. Right, the people who are going to hurt you are not the people who are the most callous, but the people who are the most sensitive. So they'll start a fight in public to remove themselves from whatever pain they're in a sense, just to get what they want out of you, because they'll just put you in a situation where you go, okay, fine, let's just not fight. I'll do it. Right? That's white male. Another example of white male is, you know, any time in a situation, like if there needs to be a proper emotional reaction to this, let's say it's at a level 5 out of 100. Right? It's okay to have that emotional reaction, but if somebody has borderline or narcissism, what they'll do is won't be a 5 out of 100, it'll be a 75 out of 100. It's like, okay, yeah, I understand you would be upset, but you're freaking out, you know, and throwing the china against the wall. There's a disconnect there between the situation and your emotional response to the situation. In a sense, this is a way that the borderline or narcissist uses to get what they want. Yeah, it's what toddlers do to get what they want, right? But that's what borderline and narcissism is, in a sense. It's like toddlers don't have a boundary. You need to engage with reality in a healthy way. Reality is facilitated through your parents or anybody who loves you. Reality facilitation person. That's how you build a boundary. But when that doesn't happen, you get, in a sense, toddler behaviors in adults, and that's kind of like what borderline or narcissism is. You know, more sophisticated because there's a stronger intellect there. But essentially, emotionally, that's what's going on. You know, in false accusation, this is another way that people take advantage of you. Not even public, but just private. Like, people don't even want to be accused of hitting their wife, even in private. Right? Like, that's like, ugh, you know, that's such a thing to, you know, to have that visceral negative reaction to it. You know, obviously that's a good thing, but so it's like, oh, just don't even accuse me in private of hitting you or whatever, and I'll do whatever you want. You know, any kind of dressing down, any kind of, you know, when you berate somebody. I don't know, it's like some example is husband or wife kindly asks her husband to, oh, could you please clean this up? And then the husband just comes out with, you know, 95 things that the wife has done wrong. In a sense, like, hey, I'm trying to control you here. And you can't be controlled if you have a high self-esteem. So I'm going to throw 95 things at you to take you down a peg so I can get you to do what I want, so you can fit within this mold that I have for you. And then, you know, maybe embarrassment. Maybe some kind of public embarrassment, which I guess that's starting a fight in public. I mean, so it's just good to be aware that this happens. It's good to be aware when we all do these to other people, because even if we're not borderline or narcissists, we all have done something like this. Like, I'm going to manipulate you emotionally to get what I want. In these less egregious ways, it's not egregious enough to be something like borderline or narcissism. You know, borderline being the more severe form of narcissism. It doesn't say that in the DSM, but that's when we understand these neuroses for really what they are, that's what's going on. So in your own life, what do you do? Well, I mean, the obvious answer is, of course, to remove that person from your life, because you can't have a healthy relationship. You can't have a healthy attachment with them. But it's good to ask yourself, why would I have this person in my life in the first place? Yeah, because you let them, of course. I mean, the obvious answer is because you let them treat you in that way. If you're an adult, I mean, if you're a child, you don't have the resources, you know, the psychological wherewithal to have this kind of mature boundary function. But if you're an adult, you let them into your life. But you let them into your life because you want that in your life. There is some payoff, right? That's one thing, one concept we talk about here is the secondary emotional payoff that you get for having a neurosis. So it's like, yeah, you can complain about it and you can say, I can't believe my husband abuses me in this way. I can't believe my wife abuses me in this way. Look at all these things that they do. Yet a lot of the times people go back to them, or they break up with that person and find somebody else who does it to them. You know, these are emotional states that we crave. So it's just good to recognize that part that you play. Not that you're at fault. Nobody's going to say it's your fault, although we may think it loudly. Not technically your fault, but it is your responsibility. Of course it is. As a being who has a consciousness to some degree. So that's what you do in a personal relationship. What do you do? What does America do? I don't know. I don't know what America does. This is not a real talk geopolitique kind of show. So it's not a good relationship, right? Whatever it is, whatever America needs to do, it's not a good relationship. Russia's, this isn't like an anti-Russia. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe the part of the problem is because we care about Russia, we care about Ukraine in the first place, and it leads to these situations that we don't want to be in. Maybe the problem is that we took a side. Not that I'm taking a moral stance, but maybe the problem is we took a political stance. I mean, maybe it was wrong for what Russia did. I don't know. I don't care. It's like, why do we have to get involved? Right. Well, that's a discussion of a whole military-industrial complex, our complex, right? We want to avoid these things that we know are wrong with America. Maybe that's it. But that's not the point. The point is you look at issues that you have, and if you get involved with these people, because it creates these certain emotional states, that's usually a sign that there's issues you have that you don't want to work on. And if you're involved with this other person out there, then at least you're distracted. And then you can complain about them and, oh, it's all their fault, and look how they abuse you. Yeah, you have your own issues. One of them being you need to be in relationships like this. So what I'm talking about here is gain awareness of your emotions so you can really be honest about them. First, we got to learn how emotions work, but before that, we need to learn what emotions are so we learn how they work. And then we can learn how to talk through them. And this gives us a way to process, to become more aware of them. So when we are in a situation like this that previously would have, pulled at our strings like we're a marionette, we've all felt like that way before, Pinocchio, and so forth. When we're in that situation, we can see it. We can more clearly see it for what it is, and the more that we see it, the more we are able to change. I can guarantee that. So that's what we work on here. We do free consultations. animusempire.com/schedule. If you have a question for me, leave a comment, email. There's a contact form out on the website, or animus@animusempire.com. Thank you guys, and remember that when somebody mistreats you, it's because you let them, sure, but they also mistreat you because you want them to.